Most of New Mexico's surface water supply is fed by melting snowpack running off into our rivers and streams, but warmer temperatures are leading to a shortfall. Snow seasons are getting shorter and there's less and less snowpack overall. Surface runoff is more prone to evaporation and less of it is making it into our aquifers and recharging groundwater supplies. University of New Mexico Professor of Earth and Planetary Sciences David Gutzler says temperatures have increased by as much as 2 degrees in the last half century.
It challenges our notion of how to define a drought. So in strictly semantic terms, we used to think of droughts as being periods of time when precipitation failed us for a few years or even a couple of decades. But as temperatures increase and the precipitation continues to vary up and down, then what used to be considered a drought starts to become more like the new normal.
Gutzler says those temperatures are projected to increase by another 7 to 10 degrees in the next 100 years. He says warmer climates further south are a good indication of future climate conditions in southern New Mexico.
To take, someplace in the northern half of Chihuahua and move it north. So at that rate of change, we're really talking about the kind of change we've experienced since 1970 or 1980 and simply continuing it forward in time.
Gutzler says the state needs to start addressing what is becoming the new reality of water in New Mexico. Irrigated agriculture may be the most obvious place to make water gains. According to the New Mexico Lower Rio Grande Regional Water Plan, more than 86% of the region's water is used in farming.
So this is a groundwater well.
Mesilla Valley pecan farmer Greg Davier collaborates with the New Mexican pecan growers in developing and implementing sustainable farming practices designed to cope with water allocations which have dropped substantially since the mid-90s.
Instead of 36 inches, we got 7.5 inches. And instead of our irrigation season lasting from February to October, it started the 1st of June and it ended the 1st of August. And so then how do we manage the rest of the year, given that's this small amount of water and the short amount of time that we have for putting out surface water? And we depend on our groundwater.
To cope with less water, some farmers are sharing water supplies and using technologies to improve water monitoring and efficiency. Even with these measures, Davier and his colleagues are still planting heavy water use crops like pecan trees, which can take several years of sustained irrigation before they return fruit or a profit. He says the measures are just intended to help farmers get by in the short term. Davier says he doesn't believe the dire predictions of climate change scientists.
I would put myself into the I'm prepared to believe category.
Davier attributes the water scarcity and higher temperatures to normal weather patterns.
While you're in it, it's hard to remember that 60 years ago, it looked like this too. Our memories are a little more recent than that. So we remember 20 years ago when it was really wet, and it doesn't look like that at all. But we look a lot like we did 60 years ago in the depth of a drought.
Gutzler says New Mexico water supplies are fluctuating on a 50 to 80-year drought cycle, but climate change and unprecedented temperature increases are bringing permanency to these conditions.
There's nothing like a bad drought to focus people's attention on a problem that should be addressed anyway.
I prepare myself for whatever future may come, and don't tend to think of it as being good or bad, just being what it is.
Gutzler says while drought-proofing is a step in the right direction, New Mexico is barely addressing climate change and has miles to go in terms of monitoring water quantities, minimising evaporation loss of stored water, evaluating water use priorities, and aquifer replenishment.
What's at stake here is the ability of agriculture to thrive, the ability of cities to grow, and the ability of people to live here comfortably in large numbers. So we have cities that have grown considerably over the past few decades in a region that gets very little precipitation. And if we want to keep all those things that we love about New Mexico, cities that work, farms and ranches that can thrive, then we better be cognizant of the prospect for significantly diminished water resources
Gutzler says prioritising water use needs to be informed by climate change projections. He says that means better planning and land use. Without action, Gutzler says the state is risking the sustainability of our way of life. For KRWG, I'm Simon Thompson.